To all members of Derry City and Strabane District Council, you're hereby summoned to attend the special meeting of Derry City and Strabane District Council, which is a hybrid meeting conducted remotely via WebEx and physically in the Council Chamber, Guildhall, Derry, on Friday the 9th of December at 4 p.m. And I'll take the roll call. Alderman Alan Breesland.
An apology.
Okay. Alderman Maurice.devenney.
Here, Karen.
Thank you. Alderman Darren Guy. Alderman Guy. Alderman Derek Hussey.
Aye, online, Karen.
Thank you. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
Here, Karen.
Alderman Ryan McCready. Oh, no. Alderman Nairi McMorris. Here. Thank you. Alderman Drew Thompson.
There's an apology for Alderman Drew Thompson. Look, he's had problems with his iPad for over a week, and IT haven't contacted him, so maybe it's someone that needs to be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Graham Work. Okay. Councillor Jason Barr.
Apologies.
Apologies. Councillor Raymond Barr.
Here, online.
Thank you. Councillor John Boyle.
Hi, Karen, online.
Okay. Councillor Michaela Boyle. No. Okay. Councillor Sean Carr. Councillor Shauna Cusack.
Here, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Angela Dobbins.
Apologies from Councillor Dobbins.
Okay. Councillor Gary Donnelly. Not there. Okay. Councillor Emmett Doyle. Councillor Sandra Duffy. Councillor Stephen Edwards.
Apologies.
Apologies. Okay. Councillor Rory Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Rachel Ferguson.
Here, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Fleming. Thank you. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
I'm sure.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Harkin.
Here.
Councillor Conor Heaney.
Sure.
Councillor Christopher Jackson. Councillor Dan Kelly.
Sure, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Patricia Logue. Okay, no problem. Councillor Emma McGinley.
Sure.
Thank you. Councillor John McGowan.
Sure.
Councillor Kieran Maguire. No. Councillor Rory McHugh.
Sure, online.
Thank you. Councillor Philip McKinney.
He's on his way, Karen.
Okay. Councillor Sean Mooney.
Here.
Councillor Declan Norris is here. Councillor Maeve O'Neill is here. Councillor Martin Reilly.
You're online, Karen.
Okay. Councillor Lillian C. Barr.
Here.
Thank you. And Councillor Brian Tierney.
Apologies.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, and I'll pass back to you.
Okay, thank you, Karen, for that. And just to read the broadcasting notice, I would like to remind everyone present in the meeting in the Guildhall or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewings. The broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you're consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of these images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the Council's privacy notice can be found on the Council website. Okay, thank you. Item 4, then declarations of members' interest of if people have anything to declare, if they could alert myself or put it in the chat box, that would be great. Moving on then to Chairperson's business. I just want to start by welcoming Alderman Nairi McMorris to the meeting. You're very welcome to Council, Nairi. So I'm going to let Alderman Kerrigan, and just to welcome you.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for allowing me in. And as you've already stated there, we do welcome Nairi into our team at this stage here, and we do thank her. She's well known in the area due to her community work and her. Sorry, it's my father ringing. Our community work and our work through Gary Middleton's office, and we do wish her well in her tenure, and we do pay credit to her predecessor, Alderman David Ramsey, for his time serving the people of the Waterside. So thank you for allowing me in, Mayor.
Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, Mayor, and just on behalf of Sinn Féin, I would like to welcome Nairi to council, and like others, I would have known Nairi through our invaluable work that she does within the community, and particularly within the Irish Street Community Association. And I look forward to working with her in council. Hopefully, she can bring the same level of commitment to our work within council as she does within the community, and I have no doubt that she will be working hard on behalf of everybody in the Waterside. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Mayor. And on behalf of the SLP team in council, I'd like to welcome Nairi to the chamber and just pay tribute to Alderman Ramsey, good fella. Didn't always see eye to eye, but he was a good member and provided good representation for the people of the Waterside.
Thank you to everyone who spoke there. Just in terms of chairperson's business, I want to just put on record, I know that quite a number of people did contact me in relation to raising other issues for chairperson's business, and I thank you for your understanding in terms of me directing you to other places in terms of it. I think that this is a special meeting of council to discuss the energy payment or lack of it, so to speak, and I think that it's really important for this meeting that we keep the focus on that issue so that it's the main focus of today's meeting. I know that we're in the middle right now of probably the coldest spell that we've had. Everywhere I go, people are talking about the cost of living crisis. They're talking about holding off buying oil until next week because crude oil has gone down a bit in price. It's the conversation that everybody is having, and you know, in terms of the £600 payment that has been promised time and time again, we're now hearing that it's going to be February, March. Now that's just absolutely unacceptable to anybody here in this city and district. We've seen on Monday the opening of our own hardship fund and how quick that went, and that just demonstrates the level of need here in this council area alone. So I think that it's just really important. So thank you to everybody who understood in terms of chairperson's business. So I am going to move on now to the item for the meeting, which is to discuss the £600 energy payment, and I'm going to go to Councillor Jackson first, as it was Councillor Jackson's request that we hold the special council meeting in relation to it. So, Councillor Jackson.
Good Mayor, and just firstly for agreeing to hold a meeting and for highlighting and outlining the reasons behind it. On the same week that council opened its hardship or fuel emergency payment, and we've seen the overwhelming need that's out there within our community. I think it's only right that we meet to discuss our frustrations at the lack of delivery of a fuel or an energy payment that's been, as you've said, Mayor, many times promised. I've forwarded yourself a motion. I've forwarded the same motion on to Teresa. Hopefully it can be brought on screen.
You get a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor McGinn.
Thank you. Mayor, every single household is going to be £600 worse off this Christmas. And it's because one party refuses to recognise the result of a recent election and continues a pointless boycott of the Assembly. One party refuses to accept the democratic will of the people, refuses to go into government with a nationalist First Minister, refuses to do their jobs, and are point blank refusing to put money into people's pockets. It was only a matter of weeks ago the former economy minister promised people here that they were going to get help in November. Now we find out that none of that had any basis at all. We've also heard about the DUP's 5-point plan to invest £1 billion into health, to give families 30 free hours of childcare, to keep our schools for world class. I'd love to know how they can do all of that while boycotting local institutions. Families, workers and small businesses are facing unprecedented challenges, and there is absolutely no support coming from Westminster, and there is no ability of our local institutions to provide any meaningful support because of this one party. This week in Council, we've discussed challenges that are faced by local providers like Action Mental Health, our youth workers, GP practices. We've like next week our healthcare professionals are going on strike. There is a major need for support at this time of crisis, and it's inexcusable that any one political party would ignore their responsibilities in relation to standing up for people. The Children's Commissioner has stated in 2022 she's worried about children dying of hypothermia this winter. And what does she want us to do? She wants all parties to be working together, to form an executive and to get back to work. There's people right across this city and district and right across the north, morning, noon and night, that are talking to every single one of us as our constituents, and they're in dire straits. They're at breaking point, and they're in need of urgent financial support. They want us to be working together. They want parties to be forming an executive and providing that support. I can almost anticipate the usual response from Alderman DeVenney that he's not going to take any lectures from me. And he can choose to ignore me. He can choose to ignore our party. He can choose to ignore all the parties across this chamber. But he can't ignore the people who we represent, who's going to go cold, who are going hungry. The refusal to go into government is a gross political and financial negligence, and it needs to end. But it's not just the DUP. A few weeks ago, Chris Heaton-Harris announced that he was changing the law to deny people here the right to have voice on the DUP's boycott of the Assembly and the Executive. And we've heard nothing from him since. What progress has been made in getting this £600 to people right now? What has been done to end the DUP's blockade of the institutions? It's clear that the British Secretary of State has left people here in limbo and paralysed our politics through his inaction. And he's fully aware that the Assembly and the Executive have no role in the negotiations between the British government and the EU. Holding people here to ransom is completely unacceptable and must end now. And Mayor, I'm going to finish by saying that we've already been told that the IT systems are in place that are required to make these £600 payments. So it's very clear that the DUP and the British government that are standing in the way of these people getting, or all the people across the north are getting support. It's about time the DUP stop looking over their shoulder to those that want to live in the past and start looking after the people that are facing a really tough Christmas throughout our city and district. So I'm urging people to support the motion that's in front of us today.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. And we have we're in full support of the motion, and we think it's right that we're here discussing this today as a council. I think it is criminal that the British government has failed to distribute £600 in desperately needed energy support payments to people right across our city, right across this district, and right across the north. We know that temperatures are hitting freezing now, and that is going to put lives at risk in our city. And I am very worried, as others will be, that people will die because they're in cold, freezing houses and because they can't afford the price of food right now. So we need urgent action. The Secretary of State has said that they haven't been able to deliver the £600 because the executive is not up. And I think it is an absolute disgrace and shameful that the DUP are boycotting the executive and compounding the problems that we are facing here. But I don't believe the Tory Secretary of State for 1 minute. The Tories have the ability to move massive amounts of weapons all around the world when they decide it's necessary, but they're telling us they can't figure out how to make sure people here in our communities can get £600 that they desperately need. This is because the Tories do not care one bit about what people are experiencing here, and it's a fact that people in Derry, people right across the north, are disproportionately feeling the impact of the cost of living crisis. So I don't accept that the Tories and the Secretary of State and Westminster have done everything possible. They simply haven't. And what they are doing is they indulge the DUP. They constantly indulge the DUP. They've done nothing to put pressure on the DUP to go back into government. So I think we have to. I'm happy to keep writing appeals to the Tories and to the DUP to go back into government, or to appeal to Stormont Chiefs to do more. But clearly this is not working. We've been arguing the same thing now for months. Well, in fact, we're well over a year. We're nearly 2 years into this cost of living crisis, and so little has been done. There's been negligence on the part of central government, be it both Westminster and Stormont. So we're happy to support the motion, and we'll back anything that is designed to help people get through this crisis. But the reality is, it's not just about the £600 payment now. It's about the fact that there are sweeping cuts that are going to destroy our communities. And I think that we have to, as Mick Lynch has said, I think we have to stop lobbying people who are imposing these cuts. We have to stop lobbying people who are responsible for the fact that they are not helping us. And we need to start mobilising in far bigger numbers to fight back. I see the future now. If we want to turn this around, there should be a general strike across the north as a consequence of us not getting this £600, and a general strike that actually says nurses and healthcare workers should be getting an above inflation pay raise. There should be no cuts to education. We should be fighting to save our health service. We should be stopping cuts to vital community organisations that carry out desperately needed work. So I think what we're going to need to see is mass strikes and a people power movement in every city and town take shape, because otherwise the strategy that we've had of putting through motions like this, which I support, writing letters to Tory ministers, calling on Stormont, calling on the DUP, none of that has worked up to now, because they're not feeling the scale of pressure that they need. And I think we need to follow the example of the housing executive workers, of the postal workers, the nurses, and of cost of living campaigners who've been calling for and taking action. I think that that's the way forward. And that's the message that we want to go out from this meeting today, that we need to build a mass people power movement, and we need to start moving towards organising an all-out general strike that can actually force those in power to change the way that they their political priorities. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Barr online.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be supporting the motion. The energy support payment was designed to alleviate the hardship currently experienced by those unable to afford food and heat. And as previously alluded to, the current cold snap has caused untold hardship to those we represent. This immoral blackmail by the DUP is causing severe hardship to those constituents that party represents themselves, and indicative of the lengths they'll go to avoid facing up to a democratic wall. And feel it's a tactic that'll definitely come back to haunt them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barr. Councillor Doyle.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Jackson for bringing this motion. Look, we all know if the hardship fund performance last week wasn't enough. We've all known because we've sat in people's kitchens and living rooms when they have had no food and no heat in their homes over the last number of months, and indeed beyond, because as much as the cost of living crisis is relatively new, hardship in this city and district is not new. But I think that there's also, whilst I agree and whilst everyone in this chamber in recent times has come together and recognised and worked together on a range of issues pertaining to the cost of living crisis, there is an elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is the fact that we are asking today, again, for Westminster to provide £600 that was promised. But Mayor, £600 is less than an MLA makes in a week. None of the parties in this chamber want to discuss the fact that since May, over 200 days in a row, MLAs have been paid their full salaries. And it genuinely, the hypocrisy of it shocks me to the point where I genuinely don't understand how MLAs can go to an ATM at the end of the month and think that they earned a salary because they did not earn their full salary. Now, before we hear the normal rigmarole around what MLAs do and do not do, I recognise that MLAs are working in constituency offices, but that is not what they are paid £51,500 a year to do. People will also say, it's not our fault, we want to go back to work. Well, you know what? Nurses are at work. Postal workers want to be at work too, but they're having to go on strike to fight for a decent wage while MLAs are effectively being paid a huge wage at this point for doing a fraction of their jobs. And if we are serious about saying that we stand beside people, and as I said before, and I have no problem saying it, we have done that as a council with the hardship fund and with other mechanisms, then everyone in the political system should be doing the exact same. How an MLA can stand with postal workers on a picket line or university workers on a picket line and not be red-faced is beyond me. Now, this meeting today is about the £600, and that's fine, and I recognise that, and of course, I support that. But let's be realistic about this. The hardship fund is not hitting every house, and not every person in this city and district is suffering. And this isn't personal about MLAs from Boyle or any other constituency. What this is about is equity. If you genuinely stand beside people and you really recognise the hardship that they are under, as we all did when we turned down a pay raise that was allocated to us, then you genuinely have to ask yourself, what is more important? Are you going to back up your party members who may be in the assembly? Or are you going to stand with people genuinely and say, this is affecting everybody, so let's have an approach that is equitable? Because you know what? There are some out there who are constantly asking me, Emmett, are MLAs watching too many shampoo ads? Because they must think that they work for L'Oreal and they think they're worth it. They're not. See, at this point in time, I know that their MLAs want to go back to work, but there are a whole wreck of other people, as Sean said rightly, who are having to strike for decent pay and decent conditions at this point. MLAs are not in this with us. They're not in this with people. And I've put an amendment to the motion that Christopher has put forward. Because if MLAs are going to stand with us, let's see them do that. Because if we're all in this together, then let's be all in this together. Thank you.
Emmett, have you a seconder? Sorry, no seconder. Amendment falls. Councillor Farrell?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Jackson, for proposing the motion. We have no issue with it. You know, we've discussed this £600 payment on many an occasion over the last few months. We've discussed it at full council. We've discussed it in working groups. We've discussed it in committees. You know, it is a frequent topic of conversation, and it's an absolute disgrace that the people here haven't got a penny in support. You know, people in England have got it, people in Scotland have got it, people in Wales have got it, people in the Republic have had a similar type of support, and the people here in the north haven't received it yet. And what we have had is broken promise after broken promise from the Tory government. They promised £400 to every household. That hasn't been delivered. They promised £100 to every household that uses oil. That hasn't been delivered. Then they promised an additional £200 to every household in the north, and that hasn't been delivered either. So everybody's waiting patiently, and they have no clarity and no certainty on when these payments are going to be made. And whilst the Tories should accept some responsibility regarding this, they have made it clear that this scheme, this support could have been delivered a lot easier if we had a functioning executive. If we had a government in place here in the north, it would have been easier to roll this out. So this is the human impact. This is the real impact of the DUP's continued boycott of the institutions in Stormont. And the sad reality is that no decisions can be made or will be made until they end this protest over the protocol. And it's an absolute disgrace. The DUP are using people across this city and district, across the north, as a bargaining chip because they can't live with the protocol, which has a direct impact of the Brexit that they supported and they championed. So that's an absolute disgrace. What the DUP need to realise is that people are suffering. People are being crippled by the cost of living. People are being crippled with inflation. And there is no support going out to working families. Some families have had support. I accept that. Families on mean tested benefits, families on some disability benefits. But the vast majority of households across the north have not had one single penny in support. And that is down to one thing, and that's the DUP. Nobody's getting support because of this ridiculous boycott. So the DUP need to own this. This £600 should be going out to households. It should have been here in November, as Gordon Lyons told everybody. And November has passed. It's not here. It's not going to be here before Christmas. Now we're here in February or March. People need this money, and people aren't going to get this money until the DUP weighs up. I've got one question to ask. There seems to be a bit of duplication. We had a proposal at full council asking us to write to the Secretary of State and the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, asking for clarity on when the £600 will actually be delivered. So it's just a question about the validity of that, because we already have that passed at full council, but fully support the motion, fully support it.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Philip, any comment on?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Obviously, Mayor, whenever motions get submitted on an ad hoc basis like this, there isn't any opportunity to consider them against previous motions that may have gone through. If this motion is passed, then we will review whether or not there are any additional actions which are contained within this motion which go above and beyond anything that's already been passed by council and action accordingly.
Thank you, Philip. Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for allowing me in. And it's not Alderman DeVenney, but I'm not saying it's not Alderman DeVenney yet. He could still come in. He mightn't be here, but he's not far away. Mayor, as stated here, this money should be implemented. This money should be paid out, and I fully take on board that there are many people struggling. We have seen the situation even with our own fund that was released, which wasn't really council's responsibility to implement it, but we have seen it how it was released and how quickly that fund just evaporated. So there is a real need there, and we accept that. Now, the fact of the matter is, the funding is in place, and it is only the Treasurer. The British Treasurer has the financial support to provide this money. It's not anything that we have. This money has been implemented. The money's been put out in England, Scotland, Wales, has already been stated. It's been put out directly. It hasn't needed to have the Welsh Assembly. It hasn't needed to go through the Scottish Parliament. It has been able to be paid out directly in these jurisdictions. So why not in our own here? So we have that difficulty. The systems are in place. The energy companies are ready to process these payments. The utility regulator has worked to create the conditions to make this possible. The absence of the executive did not prevent this. It was able to be set up in that regard. It is the government which has changed the goalposts. And that's the difficulty. This cash out option that it was rejected in the summertime, it's now been reintroduced to try and muddy the waters. The government has broken its promises to the most vulnerable. It wasn't the DUP that stipulated the money would be delivered by November. Yes, Minister Lyons did state it, but it was stated by the then British Prime Minister, and the assurances were widely reported at that stage. So it wasn't within Minister Lyons' remit to pass that money out. He didn't have it, but it was stated by the Prime Minister at the time. So as I say, it was there, and it's the British government which have not implemented their promises to the people here. So this is the difficulty. In response to, as has been stated there, MLAs, was stated there, the MLAs are having a 27.5% pay cut coming now in January, and again they haven't been doing the legislative element of their role. But I know in my own case there, our own MLA Tom Buchanan has an exceptionally busy hard-working office and an extremely busy constituency office, as I'm sure the vast majority of the MLAs do have. They are not, this bandied about that they're not working. And that's just not the case. Yes, they're not at Stormont, and they have now had a reduction in pay, rightly so, and I'm content in that regard. One of the main things, though, I suppose, which I see here is there's a massive overspend now within the executive. The 660 million overspend on the watch here of Minister Murphy, and the impact this will have for the next financial year. Now, again, it has stated here that there's boycott and this, that, and the other. We stood on mandate. We stood and we stated that we wouldn't go into the executive until the protocol was dealt with. And as the MPs, and again it will be mentioned, as the Sinn Féin MPs stand that they will not take their seat in Westminster for their reasons. So we stated that when the protocol was dealt with, we would go in to the executive. So it's not dealt with yet. There's still anything there. There's still lots of difficulties, and it's not fully implemented as yet. Stating on it there, something is simple, and you might think this is very simple or very petty. I spoke to a man there who deals in budgies, and you know that whenever I would sometimes be home and speaking from the computer, you hear a few cheeps in the background. Now, sadly, one of them departed, and I had to get a couple more. I'm speaking to a man, and he's stated now, and he breeds budgies, and I'd be feared to tell you the price of some of the budgies. It was unreal. I wouldn't have paid a cow for it, but he stated breeding birds out of England is £150 additional onto the price for a budgie. So that's the implications of the protocol. So I'll be wrapping it up now, Mayor, as well. So there are major issues, and that's someone that breeds in that's their livelihood. So again, it might be a sort of an issue, but it is a real issue to the like of him. But the final point, Mayor, and I'll be brief on this one here, the executive, yes, I would like to see it up and run again, but let's be mindful. If the executive's up and run tomorrow, we would not have all our problems solved, not by a long shot. But thank you very much for allowing me in, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. I thought we were going down a budgie smuggler route there. Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Mayor. And I suppose just in response to, the budgies, like Alderman Kerrigan's talking about budgies, while the rest of us are talking about people trying to heat their homes and feed their wains and actually get by day to day. And, is there no one in the DUP who is prepared to speak out against the DUP policy by boycotting government and holding essential money and that people need so badly into their hands? Is there no one that can actually speak out against this, absolute boycott? And it's absolutely right that we're slamming the DUP for holding up the government and their contempt for ordinary people. And yeah, the DUP should not be paid a penny. They're on strike from government. They should be paid nothing. And if the Secretary of State was serious about influencing the DUP, they would have stopped paying them. And all the MLAs really should be receiving an industrial wage so that they shouldn't be paid more than the majority of the people that they represent. As if the DUP are caring about the vulnerable in our society by their contempt for holding up government. At every single opportunity, the DUP have kept the Tories in power and have followed Tory policy. This contempt for working class people, for the most vulnerable in society, was seen with the pandemic, where hundreds of thousands of people were left to die. People's lives were seen worth sacrificing during the pandemic. There was vulnerable people and older people that weren't protected properly. Frontline healthcare workers weren't protected properly. All those lives were seen as dispensable by the Tories and by the DUP. Do they care about people struggling right now? There's children with asthma who are wheezing every night, going to bed. Parents having to stay up making sure their child is breathing because of the cold homes. Do they care about pensioners ending up in hospitals with chest infections? Do they care about health and social care workers having to care for the sick and vulnerable, having to come under their doors when really these people, it's a failure of government that these people are sick. And this isn't something new. Before the pandemic, a third of excess winter deaths were as a result of fuel poverty. People die every year because of fuel poverty. It's just that more people are going to die this year. More people died last year because of the pandemic and because of fuel poverty. And that's what the reality of things are. And it shouldn't have to be like this. People shouldn't be dependent on food banks, shouldn't be dependent on warm banks. We live in one of the richest countries in the world. The British government have the resources to money out to people. They have the power to tax corporations. Poverty is a political decision, and it's not about what politicians really can do for us right now, because the real change is going to come from workers striking. It's going to come from campaigns. All that those in power, and particularly the Tories, will listen to now are feet in the street. And I support Councillor Harkin's calls for a general strike, because that really is the power that we have as ordinary citizens to actually bring about change. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McGowan.
All due respect to Councillor Kerrigan, but I thought for a minute there I was in a twilight zone listening to budgies. It's often said that a lot of the stuff people say is for the birds. Well, I think that's the first time I can actually put what he said in that category. The reality is very simple. I was in homes today, like we all have been, that are suffering from condensation. And the reality is people can't afford to put the heat on, and there's a lot of moisture in the air. And that's what we should be talking about. I hear this nonsense all the time from the DEP about businesses and budgies and the cost of a budgie. I mean, that really takes the biscuit, that one. I mean, I'll get a chuckle at that tonight. This is a serious business. For every time I hear that from the DEP, I run a business park on the border. I could take Councillor Kerrigan on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday if he wants. The 50 companies down there, and every single one of them will tell him they didn't want Brexit and they want the protocol problems resolved, the ones that it affects. But every single one of them, and most of them are thriving from being able to trade with the partners that are closest to them. So this is stuff for the birds when I hear this about it's £150 more they breed a budgie. It's just nonsense. The issue here is people need this money. They need it now. And any smokescreen or nonsense put up to deflect from the fact that it's not being given because one political party refuses to go under the Assembly. They refuse to accept Michelle O'Neill as First Minister. That's where this is. And if we could just get past that nonsense that was talked here today and get the reality, we need to get people this money, and the sooner we get it, then the better. Because if we don't, people are going to die and they're going to go into hospital. And everything Councillor O'Neill has said there now, I agree with. It's there's an elephant in the room here, and it's the fact that this money's there to be paid, but one party isn't allowing it to be paid.
Thank you. Alderman McMorris.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to say, just to all the parties and yourself, thank you very much for my warm welcome here today. It's a privilege and honour to be able to represent the people of the Waterside as well as the whole City Council. I'd just like to make comments on the comments that's been made here today. I know there's been much lambasting of the DUP and the stance that they've taken, and their words is boycott the Assembly. Now, I don't see it as a boycott. The DUP has laid their position out very, very clear before the last Assembly election. Unfortunately, their calls have been falling on deaf ears. Now, I take very seriously the cost of living crisis. I've been dealing with it day and daily. I know people are in need of warmth. I know people are in need of food. I understand that. I have total sympathy for it. I, like everybody else, am calling out for things to be done and actions to be taken. Unfortunately, I have to re-emphasise that this is money that Westminster has, and a grant that Westminster have rolled out. They paid it directly to Scotland, England, Wales, and through their choice, they have negated to pay it out in Northern Ireland. Now, the DUP MPs have been sitting in Westminster championing for this money to be paid out to the people of Northern Ireland. Now, we can back the DUP, but I have to say there's parties that doesn't even go to Westminster to champion there in order for the money to be paid out. I don't want this to be a whole political lambasting session. We are sympathetic. We know the problems that people are facing in the community. We want to resolve them as much as ever. However, the DUP have put their position out that they need resolution in regards to the protocol, and I would hope that people will be calling out to sort the protocol issues out, but I don't hear anybody championing to sort out the protocol issues. And you might laugh at Keith Kerrigan about his bird issue, but the reality is there's businesses that have been affected financially in the whole of Northern Ireland because of the protocol, and I don't hear no mention of that. And it's not a funny matter that businesses are being affected, because that has a knock-on effect of us when we go into Tesco's or Sainsbury's or any of the shops in the high street. We are being affected every day of the week because our prices has been drove up. So yes, we are very sympathetic to the cost of living crisis. I'm heating my own home as a user heating your own home. We know the prices. We know the implications of what is happening. However, just to lambast one party and think that the solution just lies there is naive, if not downright ignorance. Thank you.
Councillor McGinley.
Good Mayor, and I'll be brief. It's just 2 points on the backs of the comments from the DUP. Firstly, Sinn Féin not taking their seats in Westminster doesn't frustrate government. They still exist, they still work, so it's not comparable. And secondly, in terms of the protocol, without the Brexit that the DUP and the Tories championed, there wouldn't be a protocol. So Brexit is the blame for the issues that you outline with the protocol. The protocol is actually mitigating some of those issues. The DUP refused to acknowledge that, and as a result, our constituents are suffering and they are boycotting the executive. It is a boycott. You might not think it is, but it is, and it's wrong, and it needs to end.
Thank you, Councillor McGinley. Alderman Hussey has an addition, an amendment in the chat box. Alderman Hussey, I'm not going to accept it. I believe that it places more burden on the meeting than is already placed on us by the original motion. So I'm not going to accept that. It's separate. Okay, thank you. I have no further speakers at this point, so I am going to take the motion as put forward by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor McGinley, to a vote. Derek, I'm sorry, I've called a vote. Sum up, yep.
Thanks, Mayor, and just to thank everybody again for coming to the special meeting, and thank all those that spoke in support of the motion. And I did note, and I didn't anticipate that Alderman Kerrigan was going to come on and talk about budgies. I did think that we were going to have the usual rant from Alderman DeVenney, but I suppose this is a week of many shocks, and Alderman Kerrigan is all too aware of that. But in terms of the DUP's stance, and I suppose we've heard it quite frequently in the past that this is a Westminster matter, and that there was various promises that the Westminster was going to deliver this scheme, and it was we were given assurances that it would be done by February. So it shows that the DUP aren't to be trusted. Now, the reality is that in February, our executive received £160 million for the energy support payment. So that funding has been in the executive since February. It wasn't able to be released because of the DUP's boycott. That is a fact. There's no getting around that fact. So this minute in time, and I'll re-emphasise it again, every family, every household in our city and district is £600 poorer because of the DUP's stance. And again, it's a needless stance. It's been well rehearsed that people here didn't want Brexit. People here that didn't. We have had Brexit imposed on us. We've had a Tory government imposed on us, and now we've had a political stalemate imposed on us because the DUP can't accept that there's change on the horizon. We were all given a message from the electorate in May. People voted for change. People recognised that there's a better way forward. And if the DUP are taking the stance that they're burying their head in the sand and hoping that May doesn't happen, and that a different result is coming down the road, they need to give their heads a shake. Change is coming, and the momentum for change isn't going away. So this is something where the DUP need to get real and listen to the people. They can either join with us or step aside and let the rest of us get on with it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I'm going to ask Karen to take us through a vote.
Point of order, Mayor.
Go ahead, Derek, but I've called the vote. And we have summed up, so be very brief.
Can I ask the legal representative to rule on Standing Order 16 as to the acceptability of the addition to the motion that I had proposed?
Well, Mayor, it's obviously it's not for me to rule in relation to such matters, and the ruling has already been made. The relevant standing order is Standing Order 17, and the requirement is in 17 that it must relate solely to the proposal and not in effect be a proposition on a different matter. Whilst there's been much discussion in and around the protocol during the course of the debate in relation to this, the motion is in fact limited to the £600 energy payment, and I think that's the basis upon which you ruled, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the vote now. Thank you. No, Derek, we're done. We're going to the vote.
Censorship.
Thank you, Chair. Alderman Maurice.devenney.
Abstain.
Alderman Derek Hussey.
No vote on the basis of censorship.
Okay. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
Dean.
Okay. Alderman Nairi McMorris.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Raymond Barr.
For.
Councillor John Boyle.
For.
Councillor Michaela Boyle.
For.
Councillor Shauna Cusack.
For.
Councillor Gary Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Emmett Doyle. Councillor Sandra Duffy.
For.
Councillor Rory Farrell.
For.
Councillor Rachel Ferguson.
For.
Councillor Paul Fleming. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
For.
Councillor Sean Harkin.
For.
Councillor Conor Heaney.
For.
Councillor Christopher Jackson.
For.
Councillor Dan Kelly.
For.
Councillor Patricia Loeb.
For.
Councillor Emma McGinley.
For.
Councillor John McGowan.
For.
Councillor Rory McHugh.
For.
Councillor Philip McKinney.
He's not voting. He's
I joined late, so I can't really vote.
Okay. Councillor Sean Minney.
For.
Councillor Declan Norris.
For.
Councillor Maeve O'Neill. Councillor Martin Reilly.
For.
Councillor Lillian Senoy Barr.
For.
Thank you. And that's it, Chair, and that passes. For and 5 abstained.
Thank you. So the motion passes. So thank you, Councillor Jackson. And just to be clear around the rules of debate and censorship, once someone has summed up or the vote has been called, that is the end of the debate. So it's not censorship. If you wish to speak in a debate, indicate earlier. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. I know everyone in this room is understanding of the issue and the urgency of getting this money out to people. Unfortunately, we all know that we don't have the power as a council, but we do have the responsibility to use our voices, and I think that's what we have done today. So thank you for attending.